Hey guys, Enlightened Tarot here with you again today. I just got off work and I'm sitting in my car and I thought I would record a video about my spiritual awakening. The reason why I am doing it right now instead of going inside and setting up my tripod and all that stuff is because I actually had planned to make this video a while ago, but something kept holding me back from making this video. And I honestly believe that like maybe I was just a little nervous about it because of how I experienced my awakening and all of the judgment that I was receiving at the beginning of my awakening. And I guess it subconsciously kind of made me nervous and, blocked me from doing this. So I said, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to do it right here, right now. So that way there I don't have any excuses to put it off anymore. So first off, I was never a religious or spiritual person at all. I actually stopped believing in God when I was 10 years old because of an incident that happened. When I was, I grew up in an abusive household. If you've watched any of my previous videos, I talk about that. And something happened when I was 10 and, I was praying to God and I was asking God, like, if you exist, show me a sign that you exist, stop making all this, torture and, stop all this torture and pain that I'm experiencing. And, then I'll know if you truly exist, because if the pain and torture continues to happen, then I know you don't exist, because why would God like let this happen, So, I stopped believing in God when I was 10. I've never agreed with any organized religion, to be honest. I've always been spiritual, but I've never really had a specific, like, meaning, I guess, or definition of what, spirituality, really was. I didn't believe in God. I didn't know if there was some type of deity out there that truly existed. I didn't know about an afterlife or, paradise or anything like that. So when I had my spiritual awakening, September 7th, 2018, it definitely was super eye-opening for me, and it changed my entire life. So my spiritual awakening it happened on accident, but everything happens for a reason, I guess. So maybe it wasn't an accident, but I actually induced my spiritual awakening while I was using psilocybin mushrooms. And it was the third time that I actually had tripped on psilocybin mushrooms, and I was with two of my friends who are also that I work with, and I had taken, I believe, 4.5 or 5 grams, so like a little over 1/8 of a gram, or 1/8 of mushrooms. And we were just talking about work and life and how shitty our lives were, and I remember complaining about, how I just hated everything, that, life shouldn't be this way, and we're not meant to work a 9 to 5, and, I just want to do this, and I want to do this. And I kept saying, there's got to be more than, like, to life. There's got to be more to life. And all of a sudden, like, I was thrown into this crazy hallucination to where I was like, I could see myself, but not Emily. Like, I could see my soul, like my spirit, and I could see every other soul in the universe. And I was with the universe and Mother Gaia, and I'm not exactly sure who it was, but I believe it was, Mother Gaia and, my higher self and my soul at the time, who was telling me, in this hallucination, that we all have a greater purpose, and, we all came here for a reason, and that, we're spiritual beings, having a human experience, and, just all of that stuff. There's kind of a lot to it. I'm not sure how long that hallucination actually lasted, but I got pulled out of it, like yanked out of the hallucination, because one of the friends that I was with had actually asked me a question. And she asked me, she said, "Do you believe that Pangea existed?" And I just looked at her and I was like, I don't know how to explain this to you. And I don't know why I know this. But yes, like, Pangea did exist. Like, you could ask me any question right now and I could tell you, like, everything. Like, at that exact moment, I knew absolutely everything about the world, about the universe. I knew everything about myself. And for the first time in my life, like, I knew who Emily was, and I knew what I wanted out of life. And for the first time, I actually believed in something other than this cosmic joke that, we seem to, be living. And I just started crying and laughing, tears of joy, because for the first time, like, I was truly happy. Like, I knew who I was. I knew everything about myself. I knew everything about the people around me. I knew why everything had to happen the way it happened in my life. And it was one of the most beautiful things in the world. So shortly after that, the mushrooms just had started to wear off, and my friends had gone to bed. And, I was sleeping on their couch, because obviously I wasn't going to, drive home or anything like that. So, I was laying on their couch, and I was thinking about, what I had experienced. And I, kept asking myself, like, was that purely the mushrooms, or was that something else? And I was like, no, that couldn't have just been the mushrooms. Like, it was so much deeper than that. And, excuse me. And then all of a sudden, it's like I couldn't remember, like, anything. Like, I couldn't remember, like, who I was. Like, and it's kind of hard to explain. I mean, it was kind of hard for me, going through it. But it's like, I knew what my name was. I knew my name was Emily, and I knew that I was 23 years old, and I knew where I worked, and I knew what city I was in, and I knew my friend's name of the apartment that I was in, and I knew that it was, a Friday night, and I knew that tomorrow was Saturday. I knew the date. I knew it was September 7th. Like, I knew all of that. I could tell, I was born in Virginia. I grew up in Ohio. Like, I knew all of that. But at the same time, like, I didn't. It was so foreign to me. And just every time I said my name, I was like, it didn't sound right. It sounded so wrong. And I was just deeply confused, because I went from this amazing experience of, like, knowing absolutely everything and feeling on top of the world and just incredible, to being completely confused about my entire life. And that lasted for about 2.5 days. And I kept, asking myself, like, is this, like, a side effect of the mushrooms? Like, no, there's no way this could be a side effect of the mushrooms. Like, mushrooms, they don't do this to people. I've never, I did all the research on the internet that I possibly could, and I couldn't find anything explaining it. And then I decided to search my hallucination, to see if anyone has ever experienced anything like that. And I found, an article about spiritual awakening, and I had no idea what a spiritual awakening was, or enlightenment, or anything like that. Like, I had no idea it existed. And so I felt called to, click on the article, and I was reading through it, and it had like a list of things that, you experience, with the spiritual awakening. And I was like, oh my God, like, this is everything that I'm going through. And then from there, like, it just kind of took off. Like, I started learning everything I could about spiritual awakenings and what they were and how to navigate them and all that stuff. I learned about meditation and the, chakras, however, you pronounce them. And I learned about the law of attraction and the other, spiritual laws that the universe works on. And, I learned about, the universe and the divine spirit and spirit guides and guardian angels. And, I just dove in head first. Like, there was no hesitation for me. There was no like, oh, this is kind of weird, like meditating and, talking to guides and angels and things like there was none of that for me. Like, for me, it was like, I dove in head first, and I was so excited to, to meditate. Like, every time I meditated, I felt incredible. Every time I did yoga, it was like I experienced something new. With every single meditation, I learned something new about myself. I learned something new about the universe. I learned about the different guides that I have, and we, switch guides in and out. So, you constantly have multiple guides throughout your life and different things like that. So I was constantly learning about all the guides that I had, and I was learning about, different deities, and I was doing like past life, regressions, and connecting with my soul family on, a spiritual level. And, through all of this, like, it was pretty hectic. Like, for me, like, I loved it. Like, it was like a completely different world for me. And every time I did something spiritual, I was constantly, just in pure bliss. And for me, it was amazing. And I think it was maybe 2 weeks or something like that. After I had gone through my spiritual awakening, I actually learned that I was clairvoyant and clairaudient, clairsentient, and claircognizant. And if you don't know what that is, it's, the ability to see, hear, know, and feel things, like, intuitively. And I, figured this out because I was at work, walking through the ship, and I was having a really difficult time, like, with, my spiritual awakening and being in the military and just everything that I was going through. And I was just like, why is this happening? And, if none of this exists, why can't I just, consciously choose to put myself in a different reality and all this stuff. Like, I was just having a really difficult time, and I immediately, like, saw this, like, vision, like, in my, my mind's eye. And, like, I could clearly see everything around me. Like, I could see, like, all the boxes and the crates and the people around me. But I also had this vision in my mind's eye, and there was this female, this woman, almost like fairy-like, divine-like. Everything was like cotton candy pink and blue and gold and just very ethereal-like. And she was walking on this path through, like, the woods, and there was this clearing at the end of the path, and I was following her, watching her, and she came to the edge of a cliff, and I was expecting her to, like, turn around or something, and instead she just jumped off the cliff and exploded into, like, 1,000 butterflies. And, it's funny, there's a butterfly right there, no joke. It's a yellow and black butterfly. That's insane, guys, okay? Like, mind-blowing insane. But yeah, so, she bursts into 1,000, thousands of little butterflies, and all of a sudden the image just disappeared from my mind. And I had no idea what had happened. I'm like, what the hell was that? And like, I was so confused. And from the beginning of my spiritual journey, starting with my hallucination, I wrote everything down. I dated everything. I kept journals of it. I wanted to keep track of it, because part of me was like, this can't be real. Like, no, like, this is too good to be true, kind of like, this can't be real. So I wanted to record absolutely everything. And so, I wrote it down instantly, where I was, what I was thinking about, when it had happened, what time it was, what day it was, and every detail possible. And I dissected it and everything like that, and, learned that it was just my angels and my higher self, like, telling me to trust myself, that, to trust the process and to trust everything, that no matter what happens, you're going to be okay. And, that, I'm transforming and changing into, this beautiful soul. So yeah, that was, a big thing for me. And shortly after that, I was watching this video. I believe it was an Alan Watts video. But yeah, I can't remember exactly right now. But it was a video on the beauty of chaos and how to rewire your brain. And it was absolutely, like, amazing. Like, I loved it. And I felt called to just share it to absolutely everybody that I could, that I know would be interested in it. And, so I sent it to a few people, and I was looking through my friends list, seeing who else I could send it to. And I saw this guy that is on my friends list, and, we barely talk. I've met him twice back in Ohio. He actually gave me one of my tattoos, and that's why, like, I connected with him on Facebook, because, we had a really cool conversation. He's a really cool guy. And so, yeah. And I felt called. Like, I didn't really know anything about him at all. I didn't know if he was interested in this stuff, but I decided to send it to him anyways. And he responded immediately with, like, wow, this is, a cool video. Like, I'll have to check it out. And I was just talking to him about, like, everything that I had learned about, Terence McKenna and all those ethobotanists and, all that, cool stuff. And we started talking and just about this and that. And I felt called to, talk to him about my spiritual awakening and mushrooms, to find out he's a huge fan of, everything like that. And then also that he was on his spiritual journey, and I believe for about maybe 4+ years or so. And I was blown away, because I hadn't, in the whole 2 weeks, I hadn't met anybody who was also, on a spiritual awakening, which is kind of why I thought I was going crazy, because I'm like, okay, if I'm the only one who's experiencing this, like, locally, like, maybe I am crazy. But then again, there's thousands of people on the internet who talk about this and have videos about it. And I'm like, no, there's no way I'm crazy. And so, like, I was talking to him about it and just asking him as many questions as I could and sharing everything that I had gone through so far. And it was such a relief to know somebody who was also going through this, who could understand me. And, I was talking to my husband about this, as much as I can without, like, overwhelming him. And he didn't judge me or anything like that. He accepted everything that I was going through, for what it was. He didn't think I was crazy. But I could tell he couldn't really understand, what I was going through. There's the butterfly again. But he couldn't really understand what I was going through. And that, you know, just made me feel even more lonely because I'm a super intellectual person. I love to have deep meaning, like meaningful, compassionate, like conversations. And my husband is the complete opposite. Like, you know, he's the kind of person that, you know, will just say like one or two words and, you know, and that's that. Sorry, there's another butterfly over there. It's crazy. It blows my mind. So yeah, so like I just felt really lonely. And so to be able to speak to somebody who I knew personally, was just incredible. And we shared everything. Like we were constantly on the phone, you know, through Messenger, texting, you know, sharing every details, you know, that we could. And you know, we're always learning. So, you know, he was still learning a lot on his journey, and, you know, we were just kind of guides for each other. And I was learning all these amazing things through meditation that I was sharing with him. And, you know, we were sharing information back and forth, and it was just absolutely incredible. So yeah, so basically how, you know, this helped me change my life is, you know, I learned about the law of attraction, and, you know, what you think about is what you get. And I started to, you know, I watched The Secret on Netflix, and, you know, I read bits and pieces of the book, and I started YouTubing it, and I found Leor Alexandra and Aaron Doughty and Victor Odo, and so many different spiritual YouTubers who talked about, you know, the law of attraction and spirituality. And it really, like, it really helped me a lot. Like, I changed my mindset immediately. And I didn't know about, you know, healing inner wounds and shadow work and any of that stuff. Like, all I knew was about positive mindset will bring you positive things. And so, you know, and with a spiritual awakening, you want to take things step by step. Like, you know, I dove in head first, and it didn't overwhelm me because I was able to navigate it so easily. But, you know, for a lot of other people, it can be extremely overwhelming. So, you know, starting out step by step, like, you know, taking things one, you know, step by step, one thing at a time is the best way to do it. And so, you know, I learned about, you know, being positive, and, you know, what you think about is what you get. And if you think something is going to happen, then that's going to happen. And I completely changed my mindset. Like, I was super positive about everything. And the people around me, they hated that. Like, even my husband, like, you know, my husband can be a negative Nancy sometimes. And, you know, I tell him, like, babe, like, you know, if that's what you think, like, that's what you're gonna get. And, you know, I remember one time he was actually like, you know, could you not say that? Like, could you just listen to what I have to say and just support me and, you know, just listen? And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm sorry. So, you know, after that, I kind of like, just kind of kept everything to myself. And even the people at work, like, there was one person that I worked with who was like, no, you're totally right. Like the law of attraction is amazing, and this and that. And like, you have to be positive. And that was awesome. She, you know, wasn't, you know, really a super spiritual person or anything like that. She just knew about the law of attraction. But a lot of other people around me, they're like, what is wrong with you? Because before I had my spiritual awakening, like, I was a negative Nancy. Like, I literally complained about everything. I was like, I hate this and I hate that, and why do I have to be here, and what's the point of this, and this is stupid and that's stupid, and I could be doing better things with my life. And I just complained all the time. You know, that's kind of, you know, the atmosphere in the Navy. Everybody complains about absolutely everything. And if you're not complaining, people are like, what's wrong with you? You should be complaining. And it's, you know, not the, you know, the greatest atmosphere, but we got to shine our light on, you know, the people around us. Sorry, I'm in my car. It's, you know, getting really hot out here. So I'll make this short. So this, I guess, will be part 1, and then, you know, I'll have to make a part 2. But yeah, so yeah, the people around me, they started to hate me because I was just like, positive mindset. If that's what you think about, that's what you know, get, and, you know, all that, you know, stuff. And they hated me. And I even remember one time, like, I'm a super deep person. I don't care for small talk. I don't like small talk. I won't join in on the conversation. And if there is something going on, the small talk that's really interesting, like, I usually bring it really deep. And I was at work and we were mustering, you know, with me and my division, and they were talking about one of the guys that we had worked with had got in trouble for using cocaine. You know, he had popped on a drug test for coke. Hey guys, sorry about that. My video had cut off. But anyways, so, you know, this guy had popped on a drug test for cocaine, and they were talking about how stupid he was, and you know, how he could have died and all this stuff. And, you know, I chimed in and I was like, what's so bad about death? Like, why is everyone so afraid of death? Like, you know, it's a natural thing that happens. You know, we all gotta die someday, and there's gotta be something better out there than, you know, what we're living right now. And like, everyone just stopped talking, and they're like, dude, like, it is 7:30 in the morning. Why are you like being so deep right now? Just like, calm down. And I was just like, okay, my bad. So yeah, like, when you're going through a spiritual awakening, you kind of just want to tell everybody, you know, about everything that you can. And yeah, you just want to tell everybody about it, and you just kind of want to, you know, get it out there. And, you know, that's what I was doing. And I realized that not everybody likes that. Not everybody is, you know, wanting to change their life and see things from a different perspective, or, you know, even has the ability to do that. Sorry if you hear my son in the background. But yeah, so, you know, with a spiritual awakening, you know, I kind of had to learn, like, who to talk to and who not to talk to. But, you know, another thing that I was experiencing, I was, you know, starting to meet all these amazing people, civilians, you know, who are also on a spiritual journey. I know in one of my videos I talked about the metaphysical bookstore, the Tree of Life, here in Ocean Beach, San Diego. Amazing bookstore. Like, I met the owner, her name's Diana, and, you know, I was just kind of telling her about everything that I had gone through, and, you know, I didn't really know where to begin and things like that. And she recommended like a few books for me and a few crystals, and I was asking her about plant medicine, and she had, you know, pointed me in the direction of a shaman that actually worked next door at a organic tea cafe place called the Lazy Hummingbird. That's also in Ocean Beach. And so, you know, I met up with him, and, you know, was kind of telling him everything that I was going through. And, you know, he was really, you know, helping me on my journey, which was absolutely incredible. And it, you know, just kind of like, it's amazing how the universe, you know, puts the right people in your life that you need. You know, with my friend Matt, and, you know, the bookstore, and Diana, and this shaman that I had met, because I was still like learning to navigate everything, and still trying to make sense of everything. Because with my spiritual awakening, like I said, I dove in head first. I was meditating, you know, 3 times a day at minimum, as much as I possibly could, for, you know, at least an hour each. I was taking hikes up in the mountains. I was, you know, journaling constantly. I was constantly researching. I had changed, you know, my entire lifestyle, my diet, my mindset, everything. I started, you know, doing yoga and working with crystals, and setting intentions with everything that I did, which definitely plan on making a video about intentions here soon. But yeah, it was incredible. And the people around me, they, you know, they noticed obviously that there was a huge change. And at the time, my best friend was living with us, and she had noticed a change as well. But like, she couldn't, you know, she didn't get, you know, see on the inside, because I felt intuitively that I shouldn't share what was going on because I felt like she wouldn't understand. Um, so I didn't. And all she could see was that I was starting to work with crystals and I was, talking to my food and my water. And, she would overhear some of the conversations that I would have with my husband. And, she saw that I was, doing mushrooms and smoking and, constantly going on hikes and I was, never home and all this stuff. And, she only saw the outside part of it. So, she just assumed that I was, neglecting my responsibilities and my family and things like that, which, of course I wasn't. Like I was, just bettering my life and, trying to, change everything about it because I wasn't in a good place. My other videos I mentioned, my depression and things like that, which changing my mindset and meditating, really, like that was one of the main things that, cured my depression. In the other video that I had made, about my depression, what really kickstarted it was the mushrooms, yes. But ultimately, what had cured my depression was changing my mindset and meditating because, there's tons of information on meditation, but, it really helps control your anxiety and your stress and, really prevents you from overthinking. And ultimately, if you really look at it, the one thing that causes all those things like stress, anxiety, and depression, sadness, anger is thinking, is overthinking. Because when you're in the present moment, when, you're not really thinking about the past or the future, anxiety, fear, stress, depression, anger, sadness, it doesn't exist. It only exists in the past and the future. So when you focus on the present moment, you don't have that. And so that's what I started doing. I just started focusing. I started being more present. Whenever I started to overthink, I would just focus on my breathing. And yeah, eventually, I completely cured my depression and, no longer had an issue with that. One of the big things that I had gone through, though, with my spiritual awakening was I started to question absolutely everything in my life. Because before my awakening, when I was unconscious, my entire life from the age of, 18 to now, like I was, making all these decisions for myself about my life. And when I, had my awakening, I started to think like, okay, like the decisions that I made, were they ones that Emily made because it's what she truly wanted for herself, or did she make those, based off of societal standards and what the people around her wanted? And so I was really questioning absolutely everything in my life. And one of the things that I was questioning, was the people in my life, the friends that I had made, and if they were good for me and if, I should cut them out. I was questioning my family because my family is not spiritual at all, and they really try to force religion on me for a long time. And, they, have an issue with like homosexuality and, ascenogens and meditating and all that stuff. Like my family even has an issue with like veganism. They think it's like crazy, that people could be vegan. So, they're, very close-minded. And I was just like questioning, okay, like do they belong in my life and, things like that. And, I was also questioning my marriage. Like, not like my marriage has always been amazing and so good. And, we never really had issues. But, I still had to question it because it was like, did Emily make this decision because of something that was going on in her life at the time that she feel that she needed to get married and be with this person? Or did she truly love this person, So that was, something that, I was questioning as well. And, of course, obviously, I'm still married to my husband and we still live together. So, I came, to the conclusion that, this is what I truly wanted and that. And, I include this part because this is a very common thing. A lot of people go through their awakenings, and a lot of them end up getting divorced and things like that. So, I can imagine, that there are a lot of other people like who are like they're not sure what to do. And for me, like, I started to question everyone in my life and seeing how they benefited me and if it was a decision that I wanted, like here and now, while conscious about my decisions. And it was right for me because I do love my husband. It wasn't just something that I did, or was continued to doing. It's not like I was unhappy or anything like that. So questioning everything in my life was definitely like a step for me, and ultimately the people that I chose to cut out in my life, was for the better. And yeah, so things changed like immediately from September to January. Like, my life had changed. I used the app Meetup. It's a really cool app that you can use to make groups, find new friends, do new hobbies, things like that. And I was using it to look for spiritual discussion groups, and I found one here, not too far from me. It's about 20 minutes from where I live currently. And, they have a spiritual discussion group that's held by a Buddhist shaman I had mentioned in one of my videos. And we were basically just talking about the different issues that, we were experiencing and how to deal with them. And, when I went to this discussion group, it kind of like explained to them everything that was going on, and how, like, I was really struggling with just finding my happiness and who I am and all this stuff. And that one discussion group led to, I think I started going to them in, I don't know, I think November or December time frame. I believe it was before Christmas. And they really helped me because I was having issues mainly with like discipline and trying to find time for this, and just being in the Navy in general, and how I was just extremely unhappy. And they were giving me lots of tips and advice to do to really help throughout the day. And that's when I learned about being in the present moment and overthinking and different things like that. And the meetings that the discussion groups were about 3 weeks apart. So literally, like, it was towards the end of December, I believe, that I went to this discussion group. And then we met up again in January. And I believe it was towards the end of January. And I had gone from the ship to a shore duty station, to where I was working in a building, working 3 to 5 hours a day. And when I was at this, discussion group, like, I shared with them that, and it was like, they were all kind of like blown away of like, wow, like that changed so quickly. And I was blown away about how, how quickly that had changed, all through my positive mindset and using the law of attraction, and whatnot. And, that's kind of like the majority of it. I do plan on making another video because something major did happen from February to basically May, June, that, is, kind of a long story that kind of has to do, with my spiritual awakening, about how, basically how I changed my life. Because, I changed my life when I had my spiritual awakening by curing my depression and making things better. But, that was all like internal, and the, from what happened from February to June was all about how I changed my life externally. And really found like a stable foundation for myself. So yeah, and one more thing that, I, experienced on my awakening, Leor Alexandra and Aaron Dowdy, they recently made a video about a mukbang that they had, and they were talking about how difficult their journeys were. And awakenings and journeys, spiritual journeys, they're difficult. Like, they're difficult for me, they're difficult for lots of people. And Leor was saying how, like, she, there's kind of resistance, like, in her journey of, like, letting go of, like, who she was and the things that she'd done, and, like, healing herself. And Aaron Dowdy was, saying how, like, it was easy for him, because if, you follow Aaron Dowdy, you know how, like, like, I kind of did the same thing that he did. Like, I just dove into meditation right away. I was meditating, like, all the time, as, many times as I could. And, he was saying that, in the video, about how, like, it was easy for him to let go because he had a difficult past, and, he didn't care to hold on to it anymore. And for me, it's the same way. Like, that's why it was so easy for me to jump into it and to start meditating and, believing in angels and my guides and, God and things like that, was because, like, I didn't have a good life. I didn't have a good childhood. I didn't have anything that I wanted to hold on to desperately. So that's why it was so easy to let go, because I didn't like the identity, the life I had created for myself. And this new spiritual journey was like a million times better than the life that I was currently experiencing. And so that's why it was so easy for me to let go. But I know a lot of the times when we have spiritual awakenings for, a lot of people, it throws their entire world upside down, because everything that they had believed in, they kind of find out that a lot of it is a lie, or, not completely true. And then they feel like their entire life is a lie, and that everything was turned upside down, and it kind of, drives them crazy. But for me, I had nothing to believe in. I wasn't attached to anything. And, there was nothing to turn upside down for me. It was just all new beginnings. So yeah, like, that's a big thing too, is like, the more, the resistance that some people experience, but like, I didn't experience that. I just dove head first. It was kind of like a fantasy book as well. It's almost like my life turned into like one of those fantasy books of, going from boring everyday life to this amazing life of, like, even having like these spiritual gifts of being able to communicate with my guides and angels basically whenever I want, and receiving like messages and images and, things like that. Which the first few months of my awakening, my clairs, I'll call them, like, they came so naturally to me. Like, I didn't have to develop them. I didn't even know what, the 5 clairs were, or how to use them. They just happened to me. It's just something, like a natural gift that I was, born with. But that doesn't mean that I didn't have to maintain them, because, I realized that there were certain things, like certain foods that I would eat, or certain movies or music that I would listen to, that really, like, weighed them down and dulled them out. And it was really hard to, use some of them. And, I noticed that when I didn't eat meat or animal product, or when I was outside, like, they were 10 times more easier to use and develop. So I definitely had to, maintain them and strengthen them through different exercises and meditation, and, just changing, adopting a certain lifestyle for it. So if you're interested in that, and how I did that, and how I decalcified, my pineal gland and opened my third eye, definitely let me know, and, I can make a video on that as well. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions at all, please comment down below, or feel free to message me, or email me. All of my links will be down in the description box below. Don't forget to like and share, please. And if you're not already subscribed, please do. And thank you for, taking the time to listening to my story and what I have to share. So thank you and have a blessed day.